This is still one of my favorite spots. I love sitting out here. The sun's about to come over, so I figured I'd record before it becomes blinding in that space. Uh, I had a thought today while I was out running errands. I think if you're in the professional development, personal development world, you would probably know this regardless. Um, I do think, like, I don't know, 99% of our problem tends to be with our head, overthinking and just inhibiting ourselves from experiencing, understanding what's going on in our hearts. And I had one of those moments today while I was out. I got out of my car to go into the grocery store. I had to park a distance. It was busy this morning, and when I got out of the car, I had this thought just kind of snapped in place. And you may have had those. They're moments that are like really easy to miss because we're just distracted by everything else. I could have been simply focusing on getting into the grocery store, and just mindful of traffic and everything else. And yet in that moment, I was aware of this thought. Because we talk a lot about vision, creating a vision for yourself, vision for your life. And I can't say that I ever necessarily even have had one. And so I've really struggled with it. I've really wrestled with coming up with some sense of, well, what do I want and what does this life look like? Because it feels like I have spent so much of it in survival mode. Like, do what needs to be done, do what needs to be done, do what needs to be done. And even the past couple of years working in this business has been very much like that for me. But it's just an immediate reaction to things, and to be able to slow down. And for whatever reason, today I slowed down in that moment and heard that intuition, heard that deeper voice within myself, um, reminding me why I inhibit myself from experiencing that. I happen to be listening to a podcast at the same time, so I'll kind of use that as an example of what I mean. Um, you can pick any famous person, but I happen to be listening to Jay Shetty on this podcast, and the immediate thought was, well, I want to be like Jay Shetty. And the response to that immediately was, well, you're 52, you're already behind. And then the thought that follows that is, then why bother? You're never going to get there. And I was not aware that that thought pattern was even circling within me. And to be able to, in that moment, become aware that, oh, that's the inhibition. Like, it's not something I'm physically doing necessarily. It is, like I said it earlier on, that like 99% of what the issue is for us is our minds, is our heads. Our heads get in the way, and those thoughts happen so quickly that I haven't even heard of it. I haven't even recognized or seen that that's the pattern that I have been cycling for myself, holding myself back, inhibiting myself from exploring what life can be, because the cycle has very much been about survival, financially, job, life. Like, it always feels like, um, I'm already too late. I'm already behind in some sense. So why bother? Um, and I don't know. Maybe you've experienced that as well. And I would bet many people my age probably have experienced that. I know they have, because I've met people who say, ah, it's too late. It's too late for me to make a change in my life. And I have never uttered those words because I don't think that's true. And yet, on a subconscious level, obviously that was happening without me even knowing that was part of my thought pattern. And I think how many other facets of our lives kind of get stuck in a particular space for thinking similar to that. And it's not even necessarily a fear, because I think fear often does play a factor in these situations, as much as it is that this thing that I'm already behind, I'm already late, I'm already indebted to, and that I'm even the previous business I worked with here, with financial literacy, that that was often the pattern. It was the same type of pattern. And then the question is, well, what do I do with it? Like, what do I do now that I recognize this pattern? Where am I telling myself that I'm already behind, or I'm too late, or I mean, I'm only 52 years old. If you look at the spectrum of what is now considered midlife, and people that are working, people are working well beyond into their 70s in various capacities, because we're living much longer. And someone had said to me the other day, are you the type of person that would stop and retire and stuff like that? And I'm like, it's never really even been like a part of my vocabulary. And I lived not kind of the normal streams of life to begin with. So there was always that anticipation of working beyond. And the person that said, yeah, I'm actually not surprised. You don't have that type of mentality. You don't have that type of mindset. And I don't, on a conscious level, I do not have that mindset, because I'm about growing, and I'm about changing, and what can we do better? What can we learn from these different situations? What can I learn from life in order to grow from it? But under the surface, and sometimes we have to find ways to break that, um, whatever is inhibiting you, to kind of free up in some sense, to be able to hear that subconscious level, that subconscious voice that is often in control of our lives, control of our situations, and preventing us from moving in a direction that we want, or preventing, like in my case, is even seeing that there is something else possible, that there is more possible for my life. Even again, I believe that on a conscious level, but subconsciously, this is all working its way through. And as it surfaces, then all of us are confronted with that reality. Well, now what do I do? Like, now I have to be mindful of the choices that I'm making, and it is this particular choice, whatever that is, um, being inhibited in some ways. Is it am I playing small in the language that we use, and where am I being invited to play big? Where am I invited to play a bigger sense of what my life can be, and probably even should be? And so now, from this point forward, I have to be mindful of that, mindful of where I'm telling myself something other than what I really say I believe. And that any of us, anyone who has worked in the public arena and has had a public voice, knows that that gap that exists between the words that come out and what we're experiencing, or what we're doing with our lives, can sometimes be very different. And it's a like move towards a place of integrity, of bringing these pieces together. So I just want to share that thought. I just mindful of it all day now, of just how much my own mindset has been getting in the way and inhibiting me from even asking the questions, uh, by telling myself, it's already too late, don't bother. I'm still here, I'm still living, I'm still breathing, so there's still time. There's still time for you, whoever's listening out there, to be mindful of the language that you say to yourself, and give you the space to be free of the inhibitions in some ways, of what's holding you back, to really to hear it, operating on a subconscious level, and let it just kind of rise to the surface. And once it rises to the surface, it makes it difficult in the sense that I now have to confront the choices that I'm making, but also easier in the sense that I now have a greater sense of control over that. So as it rises, keep it coming up, keep it bringing to the surface, and allow it to more freely dictate the choices that you are making in life.